Keane of Wethersfield lost her husband Richard when terrorists attacked the World Trade Center.
Earlier this month, Eyewitness News joined her as she returned to New York for a very special mission, adding a piece of history to the building that will house her husband's legacy.
Channel 3 Eyewitness News reporter Len Bestoff and photographer Eric Budney take us on this emotional journey, and we want to warn you that some of this material may be difficult for some viewers.
Hi, how are you? I'm glad you could join us. Okay, why don't you get the boards, Jeff?
Judy Keane and roughly a dozen members, friends, and supporters of the Richard Keane Foundation embark upon a journey to the Big Apple. An exciting trip.
Okay, where's all the coffees?
But a trip where they're not totally sure what lies at the other end.
There's so much unknown here. We don't know what it's going to be like when we get there. Here we are at JFK. We're at the hangar center. This is it?
On the outside, it's just an abandoned airport hangar, Hangar 17 to be exact. Inside, though, lies an awe-inspiring and emotional journey few will ever get to take.
How are you? You're Judy.
Yes, hi Jackie. Thank you very much. Thank you for having us today.
Hangar 17 houses some of the most precious artifacts left from the World Trade Center collapse. The entire operation is overseen by the New York, New Jersey Port Authority.
Look at the size of this flag.
After lengthy discussions with Judy Keane and a number of state leaders, the Port Authority agreed to let her foundation come inside to pick several artifacts they could bring home to Wethersfield and incorporate into the design of a center to be constructed in her late husband Richard's name.
Oh my gosh.
Keane's body was never found among all the rubble from the World Trade Center attack, so in many ways, visiting Hangar 17 helped Judy Keane reconnect with the husband she lost on 9/11.
The magnitude of these steel beams, you know, you walk in the door and it just hits you. I feel a little bit as though I'm bonding with this steel. You know, it's part of me. You want to touch it. I know, and I wondered how I would feel about that, and absolutely you do. You have to touch it.
Know what the Keane Foundation is doing, going through this heavily guarded airport hangar to get a look at some of these artifacts from the World Trade Center is really unprecedented. That's because only a few museums have been able to come in here and take some of this for different exhibits that they have. So in effect, the Keane Foundation is the first private set of individuals to come through here and look at and actually take home a piece of history.
When somebody said that they understood that this is not something we regularly do, I mean, that's an understatement. So this is really kind of a first for us.
Our walk through the hangar brought us through a variety of rusted and twisted beams, now categorized and laid out on display.
Oh, look at it, it's just curled back.
Many pieces look more like sculptures than the remains of one of the most infamous days in American history.
What a beautiful sculpture that would be.
Yeah.
Adam Palmer and Bob Roach are two of the architects who will integrate the artifacts into the design for the Keane Foundation Sports Center.
It really is staggering when they tell you that many of the pieces here that were bent were not bent because of heat.
Yeah, they were by the sheer force of the building collapsing, and they were bent in ways that you couldn't bend by hand or with a machine.
To come here today, it has been an emotional day. A cousin of mine was a bond trader at Cantor Fitzgerald, and he died in the tower collapse. So this is especially meaningful for me.
Some of the most touching metal work with the World Trade Center artifacts was done after the fact. These shapes of crosses, Stars of David, and other symbols were cut out of the steel by ironworkers clearing Ground Zero, taken home as keepsakes or given to rescuers working alongside them in the rubble.
Now this will amaze and sadden you at the same time, and that's because the people here call this composite. What it is, though, is actually 4 floors of the World Trade Center compressed into a mound just 4 feet high.
This should definitely be on display forever and ever and ever.
Keane and her son Matt were shown print they could barely make out on paper that was incinerated and melded with metal, concrete, and other materials.
The composites where you get to see the floors that have collapsed on one another just really exemplifies the enormity of it, that these 110-story buildings are now in 5-foot packs of floors.
Oh my gosh.
There are many other artifacts much more recognizable to the human eye.
I'm speechless almost. My heart's been palpitating ever since we came in here, and it feels like it happened yesterday again.
Keane's sister Barbara was among the group that entered this humidity-controlled room full of police, fire, and rescue vehicles that were parked right under the Twin Towers, now crushed, incinerated, and frozen in time.
There's something, though, when you look at this versus looking at these pieces of a building, you really don't know what part they are. But this, I mean, you know what you're looking at.
This feels like people. This feels like there were people in these vehicles, and whether they went into the building and died or whether they were in the vehicles and died, you feel the people because it's vehicles and not just steel.
If you want to go around here, be careful.
Inside another one of these sealed rooms, you can see steel support beams, signs that look as clean as the last day they were in place.
And in the middle of it is this huge piece which you will see over there in the end.
And in the center of the room, the remains of the 400-foot communications antenna that sat atop the North Tower.
This is material that was mostly from the concourse level.
The Port Authority also collected in one area items that were on the concourse of one of the buildings, cartoon-like figures from a Warner Brothers store. A pair of eyeglasses still in its case. Plus, some of the only glass found in the rubble. Most of it, along with all cell phones, desk phones, and computers, was never recovered.
That's unbelievable.
Then there were some items that survived the attack without a scratch. Check out these near intact turnstiles and passenger cars from the PATH train that took people from Jersey to the Twin Towers.
It was one of the last parts of the site to be excavated. And
the last column to be removed from Ground Zero, though, is in many ways a memorial to all the police officers and firefighters that died trying to save everyone else.
They're just not a reference point. You are humbled and reminded of the loss of life, and also, particularly with the police and fire, the sacrifice.
You can see pictures, graffiti, and inscriptions on the column, which the Port Authority is working hard to preserve.
This is softer.
The column isn't one of the artifacts going home with the Keane Foundation. It had its focus on several of the steel pieces, including one that was once part of an elevator shaft.
It's kind of a bent pretzel type piece that they were thinking probably for an exterior application.
This is one of the main considerations because it sits really neatly. It's got kind of a tranquil design to it too.
It needs to be touchable so that children can touch it and feel the connection to the event or to the people that we lost.
On this day, the Keane Foundation did not bring any of the artifacts back across the bridge to Connecticut. That day will come soon and help reconnect a town with some of its lost sons from 9/11.
Weathersfield's far from New York City, but this brings Weathersfield back to the day of September 11th.
New York, Len Bestoff, Channel 3 Eyewitness News.
Certainly some powerful images. Now, if you want to learn more about the Keane Foundation and its fundraising efforts for a new sports center in Weathersfield, just go to our website, WFSB.com, and click on News or Family.